episode number 4. I'll bring Coach Mike Adey on with me in just a little bit. We were talking for a little while before we come on live here, so I'm happy the coach was able to get set up tonight with no problems. Thank Brian for helping him out to make sure we can get this situated tonight. But as I do every week, I want to make sure to thank the Rome Sports Hall of Fame for being the primary sponsor for all the Legends shows. So I appreciate that. All their information is running across the ticker on the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions, make sure to reach out. And thanks to Dave Sparaglia for making this thing happen for me here on the Rock Pile. And I also want to thank Joe Griffo for being another sponsor for tonight's show. So Joe, I appreciate you. And I know Joe's sponsoring some more of the show, so I want to make sure I give him a shout out as well. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday night right here at 8 o'clock. You can catch me live on Facebook. You can also catch me live on YouTube. You can follow me across all social media platforms as well. All these shows are interactive, so if you're listening, you have questions for Coach or comments, I'll do the best I can, as I do every week, at pulling over the feedback to share with Coach. So without further ado, let me see if I can get Coach on here with me now. Let me pull him up in the broadcast. He'll be on in just a minute here. Let me pull him up. Let's see. We're going to try it again for real now, Coach. We just probably talked for a good half hour, which probably stole all my material for tonight, but I'm sure we got plenty to get to.
That's because I know how to set this computer up.
I know. I'm very proud. I'm very proud that you got it. And you're actually the first guest in 3 months I've been doing this show. You actually were on before I was even ready to go tonight. You were talking. I didn't even have the headset on, nothing. You were ready to go.
Yeah. Brian taught me how to do this very well.
Well, Coach, listen, it's an honor to have you on. And I know we've known each other for a long time, and there's a lot of history, and we'll get into as much of that as we can. But I want to start first with the question is, how did you – I know I was reading a lot of stuff, and you would think I know a lot about you, but I had to go back in time and read. You got as far as the coaching piece of it goes, your dad put a basketball in your hand, I think at 9 years old, I read. Is that how you got involved with coaching, was from your dad?
Well, no, not really, but that's how I got involved in basketball. You know, he put a basket up in our garage, and he made sure that even during the wintertime, he shoveled off the driveway in the backyard so I could shoot. You know, he did a lot as far as making me into a basketball player. And he obviously supported me any way he could as far as that. But, you know, the coaching part of it just came. My dad did take us to a lot of games. You know, my father enjoyed watching high school sports, RFA at the time. And, you know, he brought me and my brother to a lot of games. But my father really helped me a lot when I was younger, because the first couple of years I went to high school, I went to Notre Dame. RCH wasn't open yet. And so I went to Notre Dame. And that meant that for me to play sports, every day after practice, we had a bus that used to take us to school every day from Rome, Bernie bus, of course. You know, we'd go in the morning, but then at night after practice, we had to get home. And, you know, my father, after a long day of work, would drive down to Utica and pick me up and bring me home and made sure I, you know, was able to play sports down there.
And Coach, your first job, I want to start with Rome Catholic first. But your days at Rome Catholic, I believe you took over, I think it was 1975, and you took over for Coach Didio. Is that right?
Yes. That was when I came back to Rome after I had finished my master's work at Syracuse University. And I was going to be the JV coach and teach phys ed at the junior high, the Rome Catholic junior high. But on Columbus Day weekend, unfortunately, Frank had a heart attack and he couldn't coach. So I never did get to coach the JV team. I became the varsity coach. So that was my first job. And I kind of got thrown into it. You know, I expected to be a JV coach like everybody else for a few years. But, you know, I came right out of when I was at Syracuse and I had my graduate assistantship stuff. And I came back and, you know, ended up being a coach.
Now, Coach, I got to say, I think your first year at Rome Catholic, were you 4-14? You didn't have many losing seasons in all your years of coaching. Was it
first year we were 4-14. Second year we were 6-14. True story. The principal said to Frank, I want to have a meeting with Coach Adey on Monday after the season. And I'm telling you, I think he was going to say, this is not for you. Go find yourself a new kind of profession. But he got sick, the principal at Rome Catholic, and we had to cancel that meeting. And I swear to God, it gave Frank another 2 or 3 days to talk him into keeping me. And the third year, I think we won a championship. So,
well, Coach, you played at Rome Catholic too, right? And then I think you played on, was it the very first team at our Rome Catholic? I
was on the first team. Yep.
So I want to know who was better in basketball, you or Brian?
Brian is one of the 2 best guards I ever coached. You know who the second one was?
Well, I'm hoping you're going to say him and I were the best backcourt.
That's exactly right.
Because Brian and I had a little bit of a bet on that tonight, because we'll get into all the players that you've coached and the teams coach. And we were talking before, you've coached a lot of good kids at all the places you've been. And a lot of people always say, the coach gets all the credit for the wins. And obviously when you get the losses, it's all on the coach. But you got to have good players along the way too.
Well, it's a lot easier to win basketball games when you're, a high school coach and you got a kid 6'9" and 6'6" playing for you, So I've been really lucky. I've been very lucky with the kids that have played for me. I mean, I could talk. We could spend the next 2 hours just talking about the kids that I've coached that were really good basketball players.
And Coach, you've also been blessed too, and I want to stay with Rome Catholic, but you were also blessed to coach with a lot of nice assistant coaches, and it's always good to surround yourself with good people. Talk to us a little bit about some of the coaches that have helped you out at Rome Catholic.
Well, at Rome Catholic, my first assistant coach was Tom Berry, and Tommy and I were together for most of the time that I was there. From the very first, he was the first person that I hired for a staff when I got the job. And after that, Jimmy Kenny was my assistant coach up there. So I had 2 really good assistant coaches. And a lot of people have said, I think they're kidding when they say this, but they say if I didn't have the assistant coaches I had through the years, I wouldn't have won 10 games. But Tommy Berry was like a brother to me. So is Jimmy, but Tommy was like a brother. I still, feel terrible every time I think of him. But yeah, he was my first assistant, and he had just gotten out of Oswego State, so he had the college know-how and drills and stuff like that. And Tommy and I were a great team for a long time.
So from your first year at Rome Catholic, 4-14, and then you said you win 6 games. Your first Section 3 championship, 1981. Did you ever think you'd win one that fast at Rome Catholic with the kids and teams that you've had?
I knew we had good players. I knew we had a chance. We were Class C in those days, and we played a lot of the bigger schools. So that was always Class C was a pretty tough class back in those days. But I knew that year Tommy and I felt that we had a really good team, and we might be able to make a run.
And then I think, too, was it 84, Coach, your second one at RCH? 81 and 84, right? The 2 sectional titles?
Yeah, honestly, I think so. I think 84 was the second one, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I had it down 8 league championships as well at Rome Catholic.
Yeah. We did okay. We did okay.
So, Coach, is there a big difference? Because you've coached at, obviously, the Catholic schools, the public schools, and basketball is basketball, right, no matter where you're at. But is there a big difference from coaching at the Catholic schools to a public school?
No, I don't think so. I did have a lot of experience at New Hartford, and then a lot of real good experience at New York Mills. And New York Mills and Rome Catholic were a lot alike as far as a school. They're the same type of kids. The only difference between New York Mills and Rome Catholic is actually at New York Mills they paid me. The Catholic schools you don't make much money. But no, the kids are about this. Kids are kids. I've heard Buddy say that. I heard Mike say that. I heard your dad say that, and they're right. Kids are kids. And I enjoyed, I enjoyed coaching the kids that I coached because they were, for the first part, they were good kids. I didn't really have a lot of kids in the 50 years I've been around that were not, really good kids from good families. So I was very lucky there.
And Coach, I asked Coach Evans this too about the game itself, and obviously you've been around basketball your entire life, a long time, and you've seen kids come and go. You've seen different styles in high school, and I always like to bring up Coach Medicis because he's on with me on Saturday mornings, where this run and gun, run up and down, shoot to three. Your style of play was a little bit different, but has the style of basketball changed over the years?
Yeah, I think it has. I really do. I know I heard Buddy say on the show that there's not a lot of difference between when he was coaching and now. I kind of disagree with that. I think there's a big difference in the way kids are. You can't coach kids the way we did when Buddy and I were young. But I think basketball is basketball. And if you play the type of basketball, especially the type that I played, I was very lucky that I had coaching experience as a college coach. So I learned a lot of things about college basketball, and I tried to put that into play in my high school coaching, and I think it really worked. I think if you saw our teams play back in the day, we ran the ball, but we could also run an offense, we did a lot of that kind of stuff. We really did a lot of stuff that a lot of high school teams never did, as far as the way we play, the plays, the defenses. And again, I owe that to the college coaches I worked with that really taught me. Like Larry Costello, for example, he taught me, matchup zone, because when he played in the pros, they played matchup zone. You couldn't play zone in the NBA, but you could play that matchup stuff, and it looks like a man-to-man. And it, teams around here that we were playing when I was coaching high school didn't really know what we were doing for quite a while,
And I always say too, is I think that's a good point, Coach, because I think what you did years ago, you were ahead of the game. You were always a step ahead of some of the other coaches. And, I can remember coming to a lot of your games at all your places, and teams were intimidated by you guys just out of warmups. If people came to play at New York Mills, it was like, holy crap, we're playing a college team tonight. And you can see by the style of play, it was much different than a lot of high schools in this area.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, in a bad way to say this, but we were a college program. I mean, we did the things that we did at Utica College when I worked there. We did the things that I learned from Syracuse University when I was doing my graduate work. We did that, and the thing was, we were ahead of a lot of the teams that we played back in those days.
And Coach, I know you're a big Duke fan and Syracuse fan too. Did you try to take some of that 2-3 zone from Syracuse and input that at Mills and some of the other places you were at?
Yes, and the reason being that when I was at Syracuse in 1973 to 1975, and I was able to go to practice quite a few times, that's where I learned it. Jim Boeheim learned it from Roy Danforth, and the kind of matching up and the bumping and the bumping means movement of the defense and that kind of stuff. We were doing that kind of stuff, and a lot of teams we were playing just couldn't figure it out at that. And that's why Syracuse, for so many years, I think was really good, because teams didn't know how to play offense against their defense. They do now. It's, anybody that watches knows that they really should maybe switch in their defense a little bit.
And Coach, before we get into New Hartford too, I just want to say too, because you actually were one of the coaches that you got out of coaching, similar to my dad. My dad got out of coaching to watch me play and finish my high school career, and you did the same thing. You had a time where you got away from coaching to watch Brian finish up, and then you came back and coached again. What changed when you came back after being away from the game for a little bit?
I actually think I was a better coach when I came back, because I had, 5 years of watching a lot of high school games, for one thing, because those were Brian's games, and 5 years of really learning, watching basketball, where I didn't have to worry about winning and losing, just watching what was going on. I think that was a big help. Those were the best 5 years of my life. I wouldn't trade those 5 years of watching Brian play for anything. I was just a dad. I sat in the stands, ate popcorn, yelled at the refs, yelled at Coach Kenny when he took Brian out of the games. That was the best thing. I would never trade those 5 years. People say to me, you could have won a lot more games if you had coached in those years. I won so much watching Brian play that, it was just an unbelievable thing.
Now, Coach, do you think, I'll ask all the coaches that come on this show the same question, but a lot of coaches, the tough, hard-nosed coaches, the disciplinary coaches like yourself, you guys used to get after it. You'd yell, and the kids respected the hell out of you because, of the reputation you had and the relationships that you built. Is it tough for those coaches nowadays to survive, being that you have the parents actually who get more involved now than they did years ago, the administration? How much harder is it now than it was years ago?
It's a lot harder. A lot of the things that I did, probably I wouldn't, be able to do, like having practice for 15 or 20 minutes after a game. If, we got off the bus and we didn't run the offense right, and I got him in the gym, and, we stayed there till we figured out what we were going to do. Yeah, it is a different game. It's not a different game. It's a different atmosphere. I think the kids are a little different. You can't talk to them the way people did 40, 50 years ago. I know parents are a lot more involved in the fact that they think their kids are all going to be, going to Duke or Syracuse. Those things are different, and parents are still good. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it's different now. It's different. And I don't miss the coaching so much because of that.
Well, I always used to say, even when you win games, there's people that still want you out, and when you lose, they want you out. But it's like a no-win situation. But I do feel bad because I think there's a lot of good coaches still nowadays that don't coach because of the way things are now with parents. The parents kind of drive, some coaches out. But some of those coaches can adapt to how things are now than how things were years ago. I think we're still missing out on a lot of good coaches that are out there.
Yep, you're right. And I think that if I did have strong points, that's one of them. I did adapt to the changing. I was there when this was all changing. And I think I was smart enough to realize that things were changing and that I had to change myself. I was a much different personality type of coach at the end than I was at the beginning.
Let me bring some comments in. I got a bunch here, so let's see who we got. Tisha Franscone says, great guy. Love him. Pat Cardillo, he's the best. Let's see.
Patrick, don't you? He's a Westmo guy.
Yep. Joe Maurer says, fabulous 50. What a coach. Says, great job rocking Coach Adey.
That's my nephew who lives down in Baltimore and is a referee, and he got to coach in the NCAA tournament a couple times. Or not coach, referee.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of Joe.
Kelly Combs says, one of the best. God bless him. We got, let's see. Nazy Anthony says, Coach Adey, super guy, was a great coach, always great talking basketball. Here's your boss, Mr. Migliori, says, where's the Bulldog attire? Well, I think he's got green on, Rock.
Got green.
He's got the green on.
I tell him I can't find my hat. I was going to wear my hat. I really was. And I don't know where I put it. I can't find it.
And, Coach, we were talking about Coach Sarginio here. He says, the best. He's been more to me and done more for me than anybody but my parents. I love him. I would not be half the man or the coach that I've been without him. We were just talking about Nick.
Yep.
And actually, we were telling the old travel team basketball story about Nick when he fell off the bench. I think you might have been yelling at him walking down the bench, down the sideline.
I was either yelling at you or Brian at the time, and Nick thought I was yelling at him.
But, Coach, so when you left Rome Catholic, you spent some time. You spent 4 years in New Hartford. And, again, I remember Brian and I would come to those games. We'd sit right behind the bench. You had some special teams there. Talk about some of your years at New Hartford.
They were good. They were good. First year I coached at New Hartford, it was the same thing though. We only won like 4 or 5 games. But the kids bought into what I was trying to teach them. And from then on, we had really good teams. And, that was a period in my life where I had a chance to be a coach at they were AA 1 year and then A for the next 3. So, I wanted to try coaching at a bigger level to see if I could, the things that I did at Rome Catholic would work at bigger schools. And it did, it did. It was the same type of basketball is basketball. Coach Evans is exactly right in what he says. Basketball is basketball. And at New Hartford, we had some really good guys and really good players. We won the Tri-Valley League, I think 2 or 3 years in a row. But we had to play against Corcoran at that time, and I can't remember this kid's name that played for Corcoran the 3 years that we were playing. And he ended up going, I think it was Boston College, and playing a lot at Boston College, and he basically beat us by himself all 3 years. So we never won a sectional, but I think we made the finals once. But that was a great experience. I had a chance to work at a bigger school and be around some kids but they were great kids. They were great kids.
And that's a tough league. That was a tough league then.
Back in the day, we played Proctor, we played RFA, we played Whitesboro, and we played VVS, and that's when Coach Knapp was at VVS. And Coach Knapp is a great friend of mine, as you well know. And those were really good games when we used to play each other because, we were 2 guys trying to outsmart each other, try all kinds of different things. But that was a great experience. I enjoyed that very much. I left there because I was able to become a full-time assistant at Utica College. And that's the only reason really why I left there.
And that was with Coach Jones, right?
Yep.
Over at UC?
Yep. I coached with Coach Costello, Larry Costello, who was honestly, I'm not exaggerating, he was a boyhood idol of mine when he played for the Syracuse Gnats. And then, we struck up a friendship a little bit, and he asked me I was what they called the volunteer assistant was the title in those days. So I spent 3 years as a Division I assistant coach, and he gave me a lot of responsibility to coach and to coach some really good players. DJ Karstensen, yep. One of the best refs in the whole country. DJ was part of our program.
Coach, how hard is it? And I asked my dad this question. I know Coach Evans, too, was on Stevie's staff at Lemoyne. And it's always hard to be an assistant coach, though, isn't it? Once you've been a head coach for so long, to step down and be an assistant. How tough was it for you to go to be an assistant coach?
Not as tough as you might think, because I was still in awe of Larry Costello. I mean, I just learned so much from him that I almost wanted to pay him every day when I went to practice because he would teach me stuff. It wasn't bad. I mean, I don't have the kind of I never had that personality where I honestly thought I was, something special because we won games in high school. I was there to, to work and to learn and all that so that kind of stuff never really bothered me.
So, of course, we got to get into the Mills. The Mills is where you had your most success, and you spent, 18 seasons, I think, there. 9 sectional titles, 5 regional titles, the state championship in 2011 and 14, 12 Center State Conference titles. Here's the most impressive stat that I think, not the state championships. 7 consecutive Section 3 titles from 2009 to 15. Yeah. It was a dynasty. Did you ever think you'd be there that long and build what you built there?
The way it ended with some of the, people in New York Mills not being happy that we were doing things like we did. I really enjoyed. I've had 2 great jobs in my life. One was being the basketball coach at New York Mills, and the other right now is being the athletic director at Westmoreland. I think I have one of the best jobs in the world right now, working for one of the best superintendents I've ever been around. But, New York Mills, it was my kind of school. It was a small school. The kids were really great kids. They worked hard. They would play, summer league and fall league and whatever we wanted them to. I that was my niche in life, I think. And I'll tell you what, you don't think about what you do when you're doing it, but after I retired and Brian wrote this thing up, for my retirement thing, and I looked at it and I'd say, man, we did pretty good. So, that was great.
And I always say there's still something special about the small schools, those Class C and D schools. And I know everybody, I played at RFA, and, double A is nice. You play, it's just the size of the school. But there's something always special about those C's and D's. I don't know what it is. Even in football, we'd only get 25 kids. If one or two kids got injured in football, you didn't have much behind. But it was just always something special about those smaller schools. I don't know if it was the relationships, but there's just something about it.
Yeah. You could have better relationships with kids in smaller schools, I think. In the bigger schools, when I was at New Hartford, there were a lot of kids I didn't know in the school. When I was at Mills, I knew everybody, and all those kids would come to the game, and all those kids knew us, and all those kids knew me, and all those kids got to know Brian, and, it was a big family. It really was.
How tough was it, Coach, to have a lot of those players buy into what you were selling and what you were teaching?
Not as hard as you might think, because obviously the way we presented it to them made sense to them, and they bought into it. And once, we had a program. You don't win as many championships in a row as we did without having a program. We didn't have, a lot of schools sometimes they'll have a good team for 2 or 3 years, then all those kids graduate, and then you kind of start over again. We never started over again once we got it going. The kids and the guys that coached biddy basketball for me in those days, we used to have a mini clinic for them where they'd come and watch us practice, and we'd teach them our drills and all that kind of stuff. They bought into it. It's a small town. Everybody bought into it, and it was the kind of thing where once you get it going, it just kept going and going and going. And we never wanted to defend championships. We always wanted to win another championship. And they bought into that philosophy, and it was just a great situation. It was a great situation.
And I got to put this one. My buddy Pat Pasalakwa says we were Marauder Maniacs, and I'll never forget we had gotten to one. And if you didn't get to your game early when you were at the Mills, you didn't get a seat because it was standing. So we got there early, and I had the Marauder Maniacs shirt on underneath. And this is when I was coaching at Sequoia still. And Doug Jones, who's the athletic director, says, "What the heck were you doing wearing a Marauder?" I said, "Coach Adey, I got to support the Mills. If he's not playing Sequoia, I can root for him." But Coach, that was like special, man. I mean, those gyms were so packed. I mean, I always said when Coach Evans was at RFA, when those gyms were packed, the bands were playing, that was the most people at a high school basketball game I'd ever seen. Now, coming to the Mills game, smaller gym, but that gym was so packed and loud. Friday nights for games, that place shut down.
Yep. That was Cameron Indoor Stadium at a high school level. Seriously, if you didn't get your ticket on Tuesday to come to the game, when we used to play Oriskany and us, and I know this sounds stupid to some people, but that was Duke, Carolina. Oriskany is 8 miles away from New York Mills, and it was really the kids liked each other. Everybody thought we're all enemies. That was just the opposite. Everybody liked each other, but those games were unbelievable. I mean, you couldn't squeeze another person into that gym if, for $1 million.
And speaking of, we got Todd Matthews says, great rivalry back in the day with Oriskany Mills. Always respected Coach Adey, was a fantastic coach. Always respected him, not only as a coach, but as a person as well. Let's see what else we got. Luann Jones says, loves Coach. Let's see who else we got on here. We got a lot more here. Marianne Hawkins says, I love working with Mike. I have great respect for him.
She's got to say that. She's my secretary.
CNY Hoop Talk says, small schools have the best fan bases. I will agree with that.
I'll agree with that.
see what else. Coach Gatto Sr., much respect for Coach Adey. Great guy, great coach.
Back at you, Ron. Ron Gatto is a great man.
Coach, who were some of the mentors for you throughout your coaching career? Who were some of the coaches that you looked up to?
Well, I mean, obviously Frank Didio, he was my coach. I always looked up to him. And I've already spoken about Larry Costello. Larry did a lot for me. He taught me a lot of the game. When I was at Syracuse and was able to get to know Roy Danforth, I learned a lot from him because I was a phys ed grad. In those days, I was a phys ed grad assistant, but there was no dome in that time, and a lot of times the basketball team had to practice upstairs in the phys ed building, and when that would happen, I would be the person that would have to watch, after what was going on. So I got a lot of chances to talk to him, and learn the game. Jim Klein at Notre Dame was a guy I looked up to a lot growing up. He just passed away just recently, but he was a guy, and I ended up coaching his grandson at Mills. So I got to spend a lot of time with him. Mike Tomasetti's the guy, he was a guy at Mills just before me, and we've always had a great relationship. I tried to learn as much as I could from as many different people that I was around. I was very lucky because most of the time when I would talk to coaches and try to ask them questions, they would answer the questions and spend some time with me. So I was very lucky in that way too.
Coach, you're still involved now with some AAU stuff. I know you talked about that, and we'll get into some of that as well. But for some of the young coaches that are involved in it, whether it's basketball, football, you name it, softball, soccer, what would be some advice from you to a young coach just getting started?
I think the most important thing to being a good coach is you have to believe in your system. You have to believe in what you're going to try to teach the kids. And I think you have to teach that, and then you have to stay with it. You might have good days. You might have bad days. You might have people on your back, all that kind. You got to have belief in what you believe in. And that probably doesn't sound really smart, but it's got to be what you believe, and you got to believe it in your heart and your head, and you got to just go with it. You got to have faith in your team at all times. Sometimes I think young coaches, they try things that they really don't know well, so they don't teach it well. So it looks like a good idea when they're watching a game on TV and a college team is doing that. But you got to know that, as a coach, you got to be able to teach it. You got to be able to adjust. I think a big part of coaching, and I tell this to my young coaches all the time, you got to be able to adjust during games. We won a ton of games in my career at halftime, and that's where you win games. And we won a lot of games in the fourth quarter too. If you look back at our games, we weren't always, 20 points ahead going into the fourth quarter. A lot of games we won down the stretch, and I think it was just, because we had a system, I guess is what people say it is nowadays,
Coach, when you won the first state championship in 2011, when you get to the Final Four, what were the reactions of your players when you guys got to the Final Four first? Because I would imagine small school on a big stage, playing in front of a lot of people. What was that like for the players, and what was that like for you?
It was a great thing. It was a great thing for the players. It took us 3 years to get to the finals. For all the sectional championships, and it's funny because most of the time, the team that we lost to at the end of the year was the team that won the state championship. Yep. That's true. If you ask Brian, he can tell you exactly what it was. But we'd always lose to the best team, so we had to get over that hump, and that was an unbelievable thing. And when we won the state championship, when we came back from Glens Falls, there was a parade of fire trucks and police cars and horns beeping. We went up Main Street of New York Mills, and everybody was out. There was old ladies that would come out of their house when we would come back, and they'd be waving at the kids. And that's small town. That's Hoosiers, if you remember the movie. And we lived that. My kids and my players and myself and Brian, we all lived through that. That was great.
Coach, when you passed Coach Knapp to be the winningest coach in Section 3, and I know you mentioned, to this day you're still good friends with Coach Knapp, what'd that mean you to pass him, and what was the conversation like between the two of you guys?
It was good. But when you pass your friend, I mean, it's not like the happiest day of your life. I mean, seriously, I'm being serious now. And I think he was very happy for me. But then again, he was a little sad because he wasn't the number one coach winning anymore. But Al and I have a different relationship. We're really good, close, tight friends. So, but it was kind of fun beating him in a way.
He was a good coach. I remember watching him play too. His teams were always very well coached. And the other thing is not only with his teams, but some of your teams, Coach, non-conference games. I mean, I remember some years you played Rome at New York Mills, so you weren't scared to play anybody.
We played Proctor. We played before I got to New Hartford. We played New Hartford. We played RFA, I think 3 or 4 times. We got invited to really great tournaments at New York Mills. It was called the Binghamton Stop DWI tournament. Teams from all over the country got invited to that. We got invited to that. There's a tournament up in Syracuse called the Pepinos Classic, and we got invited to that 2, 3, or 4 times. We brought people to games, so that was always a good thing. When we got invited to but we always played really good teams. We weren't afraid to play good teams.
And
we beat Proctor. When I was at Rome Catholic, we beat Proctor at Proctor. And that was great. I mean, I thought, whoa, this is pretty good.
Right. So, Coach, when your last year came, you guys, I believe you had lost to Oriskany, who went on to win the state championship. How did you know, and I always like to ask this question too with athletes, how do you know when it's time to retire? Because you could still coach today. I know you can. Once you're a coach, you're always a coach. But how did you know that it was time?
Because I really wanted to retire 2 years before that. But I didn't want to leave the group of kids that were my last team, Terry Nichols and all those kids, with a new coach. So Brian and I talked about it, and we decided we were going to coach until they were done. So in my head, it wasn't. I knew it was coming, and it wasn't because I didn't like coaching. It wasn't because anything bad or anything like that. I just I knew it was my time, and but I stayed on for 2 more years, and I'm glad I did because we had 1 year we made it. Back to the finals. In the year after that, and Oriskany was loaded the year they beat us. They had a really great team. So it wasn't the kind of thing where I was ashamed of losing to somebody, because we lost to the state champs who were undefeated, and we gave them 3 good games that year.
Yeah. Let me pull over some more. We got some more comments here. I'll try to get as many over. Steve Campbell says, great coach in AD. He gave me my start in coaching basketball.
Yep. Jimmy and I lied to him and said we needed him to come and keep score for us. And I think we were playing Oppenheimer, someplace that took about a 5-hour bus trip. And all the way down and back, we were talking soup into being, a coach. And he's doing a great job. He was a coach at Westmo for a while.
Yeah. Yep. Bob Cook says, great guy, enjoyed him all the way back in 1985 at RCH.
Yeah, I know Bobby Cook.
Let's see. Coach Medicis, he's on here, says, great coach, even better person, despite his poor taste in college basketball teams. Go Cutes. Let's see who we got. Your boss, Mr. Miggs, says, Mike's more than just a coach, terrific administrator, and what is a tough year to be at AD, but an even better mentor to student athletes.
That's very nice. He's probably got something he wants me to do tomorrow, so he's saying something nice about me.
Dale Rashford, coach is a longtime friend, one of the most intense coaches I've ever officiated for, a true legend in Section 3. Says Rocky like your show. Thanks, Dale. I appreciate that.
Dale's one of the Rome guys that ref, who are a really good bunch of guys. Eddie Rakowski and Terry Pastor, and there's a whole bunch of Rome guys. And I gave the Rome guys a lot of heat during games. But like I love to tell the Rome guys, I have to yell at you guys because if I'm nice to you, they're going to say Adey's got homers, So Eddie Rakowski and Ducky Dale Rashford, they took a lot of lip from me because but they're good people.
Coach, I know it was awesome to, even for me in a short time, to coach with my dad when my dad was over at Waterville, and then he came with me to Secoy for a little bit. And, we had I think we had more arguments like in the Sunday coaches meetings than we did on the field, because we were on the field, we agreed on a lot of things, but the tough decisions, my dad would always say, well, you're the head coach, make the decision. And now when I look back, I realize that my dad wanted me to fail to succeed. It was, the teaching moments. And I know coaching with Brian was special for you because I think he was on the bench with you for the full 18 years, right?
Yeah. The whole trip at New York Mills, he was my assistant coach.
So talk to us a little bit about what that was like.
That was a great experience. Like I said, I did not want to coach Brian in high school. I wanted to be his dad and watch the game. But the years we spent together as basketball coaches, we had a great relationship as coaches. Every year Brian got a little better at being a coach himself, so he got more responsibility from me. But I just can't. I can't put into words what it meant to be so successful and to be so successful with your son sitting next to you. It's one thing if he would have been coming watching my games, but we did this all together. Every win, every loss, every moment of greatness, I shared it with Brian. Brian and I have a really good relationship. I was thinking about Brian and I have had many different adventures in our life together. And this is some of the things that Brian and I, dad and his son, have been able to share through the years. We went to Shea Stadium to watch the Mets play. We went to Yankee Stadium to watch the Yanks play. I used to like the Red Sox a lot. Brian got me Fenway Park tickets one year for Christmas, and we went to a game there. Brian and I went to a Notre Dame home football game together. We went to a Duke home basketball game together. We went to 2 Final Fours together. We coached together for 18 years. I mean, what more could a father and a son, do together? I mean, it was great. And during those years that we were coaching, we were father and son. I understand that, but we were coaches together. We broke down film, we talked, and we did things together, and we argued. Every once in a while he'd be doing something during the game. As the years went on, he'd put a kid in that I didn't even know, and every once in a while I would say, "Can I be the coach?" And he was kind of like our offensive coordinator. And near the end of my career, another really good friend of mine, John Wallace, he retired from coaching down in the Valley, and I talked him into helping me out. And John was a big defensive guy, so he'd do a lot of the defensive stuff. So I had an offensive coordinator in Brian Adey that wanted to score 150 points a game, and I had John Wallace, my defensive coordinator, who wanted to hold everybody to like 2 points a quarter. And I just kind of said, man, this, do it, guys. But Brian and I have a great relationship. He's got a great wife. He's got 3 beautiful daughters. I couldn't have asked for anything more. I didn't want to coach him, but I ended up with a better experience with my son when he got older, when he got grown up. So I don't want to get all mushy here, but Brian was a very good coach. Brian Adey could coach any high school in this area and do a really good job even today.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, and I knew what the answer was going to be. And I know Brian with the girls, watching them and seeing them come up through the ranks, and his job too. Same with me. I mean, my son's 9 and just getting involved. My daughter's still young, but Brian would have been a hell of a coach. And I know some people, when you were a retiring coach, a lot of people in the area were saying, well, Brian will probably just take over. That's the easy transition. But like you said earlier, when you went out, you guys are going to go out together. I think that's special. You guys are able to share all those wins and losses too. The good times and bad.
Yep. Yes. Some of those losses hurt. And it was good to be able to be have your son right there to, hug you and say, hey, we'll win tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
So
And we
Coach,
used to lie to his wife. We lied to poor Megan for about 5 years. Brian kept saying, don't worry about it. We're not going to be very good next year. So, I'll stay one more year with Dad. Then I'll get up. And every year we won. And, but Megan got some good stuff out of it. She got to go to a nice hotel in Glens Falls every year. And the girls had a chance to swim in the indoor pool. I used to tell the kids when we got to the regional finals, you got to win this game because my granddaughters want to swim in the pool, So it was a family thing. It really was. It really was a family thing, which it is. You all these coaches that you've talked to, family's been a big part of their life too.
Coach, when the very last game, that Oriskany game that you coached, when the 2 minute to go in a game, that time was winding down, and you knew that was the last game, what went through your mind as that clock hit 0?
What a great life I had being a coach, and I knew it was the last game. I knew I really hoped we could have beat Oriskany that day, but they were better than us that year, and I knew that. So I knew it at that point in time. I knew it was clicking down. And you think back to all the good times, the bad times, and I had a lot more good times than bad times. But you think back, and you're very thankful. I know my daughter was always looking over us. A lot of games we won because of Michelle, because she pulled the right strings, and the ball didn't go in for the other team, and it went in for us. So, we had some great family times during those years. But it was time. I had no regrets that day, other than I would have liked to win, but it was great. So it was the last 2 minutes. Honestly, I was very calm and just kind of took it in for the one last time. It was great.
Coach, you're a member of the New York State Basketball Hall of Fame, the Greater Utica Sports Hall of Fame, and obviously the one right here locally who's sponsoring tonight's show, the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. Let's start with the Rome Sports Hall of Fame one first. What's it mean to be in that Hall of Fame?
Well, it's your hometown, It was the first Hall of Fame I got in. And, honestly, I've always thought that maybe I didn't deserve it then to be part of the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. I think they gave me a lot more credit than at that time in my career. But it's great honor. It's my hometown, And someday, anytime my granddaughters or my great-granddaughters want to go down to the Hall of Fame, they can see my plaque. That's a great thing. It's a really cool thing.
And then to be inducted into both the New York State and the Greater Utica one, you went in with, 2 good classes, and all 3 of your Hall of Fames, you're in there with 3 great classes. Yeah. But how special are the other 2?
The Utica one was really special because it's Utica. They didn't. What did they care about me? But they did. And by that time, that's when we had some great years at New York Mills, and I felt a little more comfortable making a speech for a Hall of Fame when we really did, win some great things. And there's not. I'm in the New York State Hall of Fame. So's Jim Boeheim. So's Lou Carnesecca. I can name a whole bunch of people, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm in the same Hall of Fame as them. That's a cool thing. It really is. And of course, the same day I got in, Buddy got in. So that was, Buddy and I have a good relationship, and everybody that knows us knows that. And, Buddy did a lot for me too, when you get right down to it. He used to drag Jimmy, Kenny, and I to all over the country to go to clinics and camps and all this kind of stuff. But he always included me, So I have to thank him very much for all he did for me too.
Coach, when you look back at your entire career, is there anything you would have did differently at any of the schools or just your career in general? Would you have changed anything?
No, I don't think so. Obviously it all worked out. No. No. And one of my greatest experiences was coaching you and Brian. And this is the truth. You know me. I don't just talk to talk. You were all young kids, but you and Brian were almost like brothers growing up. You couldn't have been any closer than you two. And you two are my backcourt. You two probably are my 2 best guards of all time together.
Well, I was hoping you'd say that.
I never could talk you into forgetting about football and come and coach and go to RCH. So you could have played together in high school, but no, you had to be a football star.
Well, listen, you got to go back and tell us real quick. The Brian gave me the tidbit last night. St. John the Baptist High School in Syracuse. You were a baseball coach. You won a Section 3 title, and Coach Medeiros' dad was on that team. That team was loaded, you said. How'd you fall into that job?
I was a grad assistant at Syracuse, and in the spring I wasn't doing anything much other than teaching a couple classes. So the principal at Rome Catholic, Sister Mary Salvatierra, knew the principal at St. John the Baptist. They needed a phys ed teacher a day and a half a week. So I did it. They needed a baseball coach, and I had coached, I think, JVs at RCH with Fee DeCosti. So I did it. And this is a true story. The first day of practice, I just said, "My God, this team's good. I got to just make sure I don't screw this up." And we won the sectionals. It was unbelievable. And Nick's father was my second baseman, I think. And we had the two Palucci brothers. And if Nick's listening to this, he probably knows some of these names. And that was, I mean, really, we won the sectional championship. And your dad was a good baseball guy. Coach Fee was a good baseball guy. I wasn't really, anything special, but I was loaded with talent, pitching, catching, all kinds. It was great. It was great. I mean, that was a good experience. It really was, because it was a good bunch of kids too.
Coach, where did the Duke obsession come from? The coach guy. I know you're a Syracuse guy too. You had season tickets for the Syracuse games. Where'd the Duke obsession come from?
Because I like the way he coaches. I like the stuff he does. I like the way he's very disciplined, and he gets the most out of his players because he is disciplined. I got a chance to go. I've been to many Duke practices to watch practice and really see how they do things. Every year I just learn more about. I don't know. I just think he is a great coach, and I think he's the kind of coach that I wanted to be. In that, they did the things right. And we stole a lot of stuff from them. We ran a lot of their plays. We ran a lot of their out of bounds plays. When I was at Mills, we had a whole bunch of kids that were managers on our team. Because Duke, if you ever watch a Duke game, you see the managers, the way they do things. I used to sit there and practice and just watch what the managers did. One year at Mills, we had 7 managers for a high school team. 7. That's 7 kids that got a chance to be part of a basketball team, even though they weren't players. That was 7 kids that went to the Final Four. And I think the year we had the 7 is one of the years we won it, and they got a ring just like the players did. But the Duke stuff, I just like the way they do it. I love Syracuse, I really do. And when they play each other, it's kind of hard and all that kind of stuff. But like Coach Kenny will tell you, I'll have my orange shirt on or my orange sweater on at the game, but I'll have my Duke T-shirt on under it.
Coach, you've won the state championships. You got a lot of trophies and all that. Do you still have our travel team basketball trophy or plaque somewhere?
Yeah, I do. And on my, I'm looking at my refrigerator. Right on my refrigerator, I got something from that weekend too. Yeah. That was a great experience. Remember, we walked into the gym in the Olympic fashion. All the teams walked in. It was like really cool. It was, you remember that? Yeah, that was good.
We were talking not too long ago. My mom was saying that we used to sleep over strangers' house.
Yes. Yeah. Can you imagine doing that today? You would leave us and go off with some family for the weekend.
But I'll tell you, when we went to games, and I don't think many people gave us a shot even then to play and beat some of the teams that we beat. But we traveled well. We brought a lot of Romans to those tournaments. And even then, Coach, we won a lot of games. We won against some tough teams, some tough competition.
Well, like we were talking before the show, we played that team from Long Island that had all kinds of pro football players' sons playing on it.
Yep.
We played like the best. What was the name of that? Something House. What was?
Friendly House.
friendly house friends or whatever. They were like the gurus of biddy basketball back in the day. And we played, and there was a coach. Buddy would remember this guy's name because Buddy remembers all these people. But he was like Don something or other. He was like one of the all-time great youth coaches, and we played against his team. You know, I got to shake his hand and talk to him, and it was a great experience. And we had some great kids on that team.
Yeah.
You know, remember the McSweeney kid?
Yep.
Unfortunately, passed away at a very young age. You know, I remember him well. We had some really good kids on that team.
And actually, Coach Lance Cyrus, you remember Lance? Lance actually stays in touch with me, and we were just talking about that not too long ago. The good old days.
Yep.
I mean, we were in Pennsylvania. I mean, we were all over the place. Massachusetts.
I got to tell you this story, and I hope we have time. We were in Pennsylvania that year, and we played on Saturday. And Tark was on the team. And Ray, you know, Ray, his dad, we were like maybe an hour from Philly. So Big Tark says, let's go to Duke is playing Kentucky in the regional finals.
Yep, I remember this.
So I said, you know, I'm kind of tired. And I was, you know, we always went to the Final Four, Buddy and Jimmy and I. I said, I'm going to the Final Four. He goes, yeah, let's go. I said, nah. You know, he goes, yeah, let's go. Well, that was the Duke Kentucky game that we could have been at, and Tark never lets me forget that. That's probably the greatest college basketball game of all time. We could have been there, but no, I was too tired from coaching 7th grade kids. We didn't want to take a ride.
That was the Leitner shot.
Yes, yeah, and we probably would have been under a basket, you know, because that's where you can scalp tickets to any big event. Yeah, I did. You know, that one. I never lived that one. The Coach Davis story that he didn't tell about my football coaching, I'm not going to tell. But that was another great story. The balk at second base when I was umping. I call the balk at second base. You can't do that. There's no such thing. But I got myself out of that by telling the coach, you know, the kid moved wrong. I've had some great bad experiences too. So.
Well, Coach, let me pull over a few more comments here and we'll wrap it up. Your brother, Paul, Uncle Paulie says, great coach, better brother, terrible wiffle ball player.
Yeah, because he used to throw curveballs. And that, you know, that wasn't fair.
Let's see. John Sabredo says, Todd Matthew goes, I'm still banned from the Beekman gym today.
Yeah, yeah. Another risky kid. You know, I'm looking, Rock. Oh, right there. There it is, right there. Rich Perrioli.
Yep.
That was a kid that played for me at St. John the Baptist.
Yep, says, thanks, Coach. Quite a baseball team. And Nick's dad, Tom, says, much respect to Coach Adey. And SJBA 75 sectional champs.
St. John the Baptist Academy.
Yep.
And Rich, if Rich Perrioli is listening, I really appreciate you sending that little note in. And say hi to everybody. If you run into those guys, please give them my regards. I don't forget you guys ever.
And Jay Smith says, you're the best. Love my time working with you, Coach.
Yeah, Smitty was a great kid.
So, Coach, one last thing I got for it. Is this the year my Gonzaga Bulldogs cut the Nets down?
Yep. They're my team. You know, I mean, Duke's my team. But and you talk about watching college coaches and how to run programs. That guy runs a great program. You know, I've always respected one. But we can't go this year, so I can't get you the T-shirt.
I know, I'm disappointed, but I still remember, Coach, you walked into the radio station on Saturday morning with a Gonzaga hat, a Gonzaga T-shirt. I still wear them both.
I know.
But Baylor's tough, too, this year.
Yeah, they're good.
Baylor's got a really good team. Texas got a really good team. So.
Texas is good. You know, Texas is very good. Yep. Duke's making a run. Watch him.
Well, Coach, listen, I appreciate you. You know I respect the hell out of you. I think my only regret is not being able to play high school basketball for you. But you know I love you like a dad. You've always been good to me and my family, and I think the world of you, and I respect the hell out of you, and I appreciate you coming out with me tonight. It means a lot to me.
It's been great, and you know, I can't say enough about the kind of man you've become. You know, you are like a son to me. Just you and Brian, you know, we shared a lot of good times, and you and your family. You really have become a great man, Rock.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach, and I appreciate you coming on here tonight. I'm glad we were able to make it happen. I'll thank Brian for making sure you got set up tonight and getting us ready for tonight. So I appreciate you.
This was a lot of fun, Rock. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad, Coach. And there was a lot more comments, too. So I don't know if you're a Facebook guy, but you might want to see if Brian can pull up some of the comments. There was a lot more on here that I didn't pull up, but you got quite a bit.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all those people that, did that. I'm really touched by Richie Perioli. I don't know how the hell he even knew about your pro. He's at Syracuse. Last time I knew he was at Syracuse. Tom Medicis I see when he comes down to watch Nick play. But yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it. I really did.
Well, I'm glad, Coach. I appreciate you, and we'll get you on Saturday mornings to talk some college basketball here pretty soon.
Sometime. And next time you get Herb Hand, let me know so I can, tell him how much the Westmoreland Athletic Department appreciates all he's done in his life.
I always said he looked good in green and white.
I know you're running out of time, but I was so impressed the other night when he said one of the best rivalries in his career was Rome Catholic Westmoreland.
Yeah.
And if you go back to those days, that was they used to pack our face stadium on Saturday night for that game. I was really impressed when Herb said that.
Well, he's been in the Red River rivalry shootout, Texas, Oklahoma.
He's been in good rivalries.
He's been in some big games, and for him to say that, that's pretty special.
Yep. So go Bulldogs. I'm a Bulldog now.
So you look good in green, Coach. All right. Well, I appreciate you.
Take care, Rock. I love you.
All right. You got it. Love you too, Coach. That's awesome. He's been like a dad to me. I mean, him and he used to live down by my mom's beauty salon, and his son Brian and I would go outside in the wintertime and shoot baskets with the gloves on. We'd throw the baseball in the front yard. We used to run football plays in the Fort Stanwix Park. And Coach was great. I remember sitting behind the bench plenty of times as a young kid when he was at New Hartford. The highlight for me was always watching coaches with the X's and O's, what they used to say during a timeout. And one of the things that Coach said that I 110% wholeheartedly agree with, what you do at halftime, the adjustments that a coach can make, the in-game adjustments, I think is really what separates the good coaches from the great coaches, because not all coaches, if you have athletes, you can win games at any sport. But to win championships takes a lot more to win a championship than to just win games. And he's built programs everywhere he's been. And the dynasty at New York Mills, I'm not sure we'll ever see it again anywhere in any sport at the high school level to see what he did in the 18 years at New York Mills. So I appreciate Coach for coming on here tonight. I appreciate everybody following the show. Next week we'll have longtime Rome Free Academy field hockey coach Linda Harjung's going to join me. And that actually wraps up the first full month of the Legends Show here, again, sponsored by the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. I want to make sure I thank Senator Joe Griffo for sponsoring this show tonight. And again, thanks to Coach Mike Adey for coming on here tonight. Saturday morning, the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch from 9 to 11. You can join myself, Coach Nick Medicis, Coach Pagliaro, and the stat man, Eric Coleman. We'll talk to Brandon Steiner, the CEO of Steiner Sports, will join me. So make sure to tune in for that and more. So on behalf of the Rock Pile tonight, as I say every Wednesday night, the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality. Thanks for tuning in tonight.